Merry Christmas, Bedford Falls. Merry Christmas, Stephanie.
You can call me Bedford Falls.
Yeah, okay.
I love that movie.
Indeed.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Indeed.
I'm so surprised at how many people have never seen that classic Christmas movie.
It is a requirement. You are not a good parent if you do not introduce your family.
That's pretty crazy.
Oh, it is too strong, but it is a powerful movie, worth seeing from beginning to end.
Yes.
Welcome, everybody, to the last edition of Ignite Radio Live. We've been so blessed to have this program every week for the past 10 years, but do not fret. We are continuing in the new year with an entire new program called Live It. We may change the name, but it's going to be along those lines. And it's going to be a half-hour version every week, and we're very excited about it because it corresponds to what we really believe is at the heart of experiencing God's grace outpoured personally in our marriages, families, and world. Tell us about that, Steph, before we get into our very exciting last program tonight.
So we invite you to join us by subscribing at liveittoday.us. It stands for, of course, Image the Trinity. And that's what we're called to do, right? And so if you subscribe there each morning, you will join many others in receiving into your inbox the daily devotional for the day, where it focuses on that day's gospel for Mass. It begins with a declaration. It has a number of very beautiful yet practical, reflective words. I am struggling with my words today. But yeah, we've gotten such great feedback about it, and it's just a real gift, and we invite you to join us in receiving that gift.
liveittoday.us. So, folks, tonight, very blessed to journey with you deeper into the heart of Christ's Mass. And I don't say those words cliche or easy. I'm mindful of the degree to which this week for many can be performative, gymnastics, going through the motions, right? Just trying to muster some kind of feeling or desire that just seems vapid when the presents are open.
Ooh,
and the next day. You like that? Vapid? And we're looking for the V-A-P-I-D.
Nice.
Looking for the deeper meaning that's meant to be more than just a fleeting moment, right? So God invites us to do that all the time, to open our hearts and receive Him there. And so to do that, we are tonight going to go into the heart of prominent Christmas carols, what the story was behind each carol that prompted them to write it, compose it. So the theme for tonight is From Ache to Adoration, the healing heart of Christmas carols. And we've got 8 carols we're going to share tonight with the stories behind them. So, and a special thank you to our dear friends, the O'Neill brothers, Tim and Ryan O'Neill of the O'Neill brothers. And they've given us permission to score as we read the stories behind each of these. They're beautiful instrumental music. But do check them out at pianobrothers.com. You can find many particular Christmas albums and reflective albums and that sort of thing. So, From Ache to Adoration, the healing heart of Christmas carols. Every Christmas song begins somewhere. Not in a studio, not in a sanctuary filled with poinsettias and polish, but in a human heart. And if we're honest and we look there, typically we see somebody who's tired, burdened, often searching for words strong enough to carry hope when hope feels thin. The carols we sing each December did not emerge from ease. They rose from ache, from dark winters and uncertain futures, from war-weary villages, sick beds, broken churches, restless souls, and ordinary people who discovered that silence was no longer enough. These were men and women who needed to sing. They needed to sing because the world felt fragile, because suffering demanded meaning, because faith without worship begins to shrink. They sang because God had promised to enter history not as some idea up there in the clouds, but as a person. Not to hover above human pain, but to step into it. From ache to adoration, this is the arc of Christmas, the arc you and I are in. With every experience that we have right now in our lives, this ache is real. The waiting is honest. The fatigue is human. And yet into this very place, God comes, not through force or spectacle, but through flesh and breath and song, through a child laid in a manger, through angels startling shepherds awake, through a truth so profound it demanded to be sung again and again until it shaped the soul. These carols are not ritual repetitions. They're testimonies. They bind us into a collective story, the story of God's love entering the world to save it, and of human hearts learning how to respond. In these stories, we will step inside the lives that gave birth to the songs, the doubts, the longings, the courage, the quiet faith. And as we do, we may recognize something of our own story reflected back to us. Because the same God who met them in their ache still meets you and me now and here in ours. And he still draws us, the human soul, toward its truest purpose, adoration.
Our first carol, O come, Emmanuel. Before this was a song, it was a wound. Imagine Europe not as a map, but as a lived body in the late 8th or early 9th century, scarred, unsettled, unsure whether tomorrow will hold bread or blood. Roads are unreliable. News travels oh so slowly, often badly. Whole regions live at the mercy of weather, warlords, or wandering armies. Viking raids press in from the north. Political power shifts with frightening speed. Villages disappear. Churches burn. The world feels fragile in a way modern people rarely experience. Faith had not disappeared, but it had thinned under the weight of survival. And yet, in the midst of this instability, there were places of stubborn light. Monasteries. They are not romantic retreats. They are demanding, disciplined communities of men who have bound their entire lives to God, not because it is easy, but because they believe the soul withers without worship. These men farm frozen ground, copy manuscripts by candlelight until their eyes ache, rise in the dead of night to pray when every instinct says to stay warm. Many came here carrying grief, lost families, ruined homelands, sins they could not outrun. Others were born into a world where chaos felt normal and order felt like salvation. They live by bells, bells that interrupt sleep, bells that call them back when their minds wander, bells that insist God is not an idea, you belong to Him. By December, the cold is deep, darkness arrives early, hunger presses closer. Advent is not a quaint season of candles and wreaths. It is a confrontation with waiting, waiting for warmth, waiting for safety, waiting for meaning, waiting for God to act. And this is where the need emerges, not for novelty, not for performance, but for language strong enough to carry hope when feelings fail. In the final days before Christmas, these monks gather each evening for Vespers. Their breath clouds the air. Their bodies are tired. Their prayers are not abstract. They are praying for the whole world outside their walls, for farmers, widows, children, for rulers who may or may not rule justly, for peace that feels impossibly distant. And then they begin to sing, not something cheerful, something ancient, something raw. Oh, each antiphon begins the same way, a single letter that is more cry than word. It is the sound you make when you do not know what else to say. O wisdom, O Lord of might, O root of Jesse, O key of David, O dayspring, O King of nations, O Emmanuel. Each title is a thread pulled straight from Scripture, Isaiah's promises spoken into Israel's exile. These monks know that story well. Israel was surrounded, displaced, mocked, waiting. So are we, they think. So are we. They are not singing about God in general. They are calling Him by name. Not the name of comfort, but the name of rescue. Emmanuel, God with us. Because that is the ache. Not that God exists, but that he feels far. The world feels unheld. History feels unredeemed. Ritual alone will not carry this weight. And so the antiphons gather themselves into a single, unforgettable plea. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel. Ransom, because captivity is real, because sin is real, because fear is real, because men who pray every day still feel the world pressing in. This song exists because the soul was made to worship, and when it does not, it begins to fracture. Worship here is not repetition. It is resistance. It is the refusal to believe that chaos has the final word. And then, astonishingly, they dare to sing this: rejoice, rejoice. Not because things look better, not because the cold has lifted, but because God has promised to enter the story himself. This is not Christmas yet. This is Advent, faith holding its breath. The heartbeat of this song is not medieval ritual. It is evangelical to the core. God must come. We cannot climb our way to him. He must cross the distance. He must take on flesh. He must step into history, into blood and dirt and suffering, and bind us back together into a single redeemed story. This song was born because human beings discovered again that without God, even the faithful grow weary. And with him, even the weary can sing in the dark. That is why it has endured, because it was never meant to impress. It was meant to keep hope alive, and it still does.
Carol 2, O Holy Night. Picture a small French town in the mid-1800s, Roquemaure, nestled along the Rhone River. The revolution is no longer raging in the streets, but its aftershocks remain everywhere. Churches have reopened, but trust has not fully returned. Faith for many has become something inherited but distant, more cultural than consuming. The world feels newly modern, newly skeptical, newly confident in human reason, and quietly hollow. Placide Cappeau knows this tension from the inside. He is not a priest, not a monk, not even especially devout by reputation. He is a wine merchant by trade, a poet by temperament, and a man who has learned how to live with one foot inside belief and one foot outside it. He loves beauty, he loves words, but he's restless, observant, sensitive to injustice. And like many men of his time, he carries a low-grade disillusionment. If God is real, why does the world still ache like this? One winter, the local parish priest approaches him with a request. The church has just renovated its organ. Christmas is coming. Would Placide write a poem for the celebration? Something fitting the birth of Christ? It's an odd choice, and perhaps a providential one. Placide agrees, but not lightly. He does not sit down to write sentiment. Instead, he opens the Gospel of Luke and begins to read, not as a theologian, but as a man trying to understand whether this story still has the power to interrupt history. And slowly, something happens. He sees the night, not metaphorically, but literally. A world before electric light, a world where darkness is real, thick and frightening. He imagines a sky heavy with stars, a people long bent under moral and political weight, a silence waiting to be broken. And he writes, "O holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of the dear Savior's birth. This is not cozy, this is cosmic. The universe holding its breath." Then comes the line that betrays the poet's own soul. "Long lay the world in sin in error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. That word, worth, is the crack where the light enters. This is not abstract doctrine. This is a man wrestling with whether human life means anything more than survival and struggle, whether dignity is real, whether hope is earned or given. The poem is sent to Paris to be set to music, and here the story turns even more human. The composer chosen is Adolphe Adam, a Jewish man in a Catholic country, a respected musician, an outsider in his own way. He reads Placide's words and recognizes something rare, a song that does not merely describe Christmas, but demands a response. He writes music that does not tiptoe. It swells, it climbs, it risks excess, because the incarnation is not subtle. God does not whisper his way into history. He enters it with consequence. When the song is first performed on Christmas Eve, it stuns people. Some are moved to tears. Others are unsettled. This is not a gentle lullaby. It feels, in fact, dangerous. And then, years later, another man enters the story, an American abolitionist minister translating the carol into English. He reaches the third verse and stops cold. Truly, he taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother, and in his name all oppression shall cease. This is not poetic decoration. This is a moral explosion. The incarnation is suddenly not just a miracle to admire, but a judgment on the world as it is. If God has entered human flesh, then flesh cannot be owned. If Christ is born, slavery is exposed as a lie. If Emmanuel has come, oppression has an expiration date. The song becomes controversial. Churches argue about it. Some reject it, not because it is untrue, but because it is too true, too demanding, too unwilling to let Christmas remain private. And yet it spreads, because the heartbeat of this song is unmistakably evangelical. Christ has come and nothing remains the same. Not politics alone, not culture alone, but the human soul. Fall on your knees. This is not metaphor, it is invitation. The song was born from doubt and conviction meeting in the same human heart. From artists who stood slightly outside the religious center and dared to take the gospel seriously enough to let it confront the world. It endures because it refuses to let Christ and Christmas be decorative. It insists that the night was holy because God entered history to reclaim what was lost: human dignity, human worth, human souls made not for chains, but for worship. And when it reaches its height, it does not end in quiet reflection, but in command. O night divine. Because if God has come this close, there is only one honest response: adoration.
Carol 3, Silent Night. This song was born not from abundance, but from interruption. It is December 1818 in Oberndorf, a small riverside village in Austria. The Napoleonic Wars have only recently ended, leaving Europe bruised and poor. Borders have shifted, economies are fragile, families are tired in ways that linger long after cannons go quiet. Winter comes early here, and when it comes, it presses hard against thin walls and thinner reserves. The Salzach River runs cold and unforgiving. Floods have damaged homes. They have also damaged the little parish church, St. Nicholas, where the people of Oberndorf gather not for spectacle, but for survival. Faith here is not ornamental. It is what you cling to when you have buried neighbors and rationed bread. Joseph Moore knows this life intimately. He is a young assistant priest, 26 years old, the illegitimate son of a poor knitter. He grew up knowing social scorn and material insecurity. His priesthood is not a polished ascent. It is a hard-won calling shaped by illness, poverty, and a deep tenderness for ordinary people who carry heavy loads quietly. 2 years earlier, while serving in another parish, Moore had written a short poem, not for publication, not for performance, simply as a meditation, something to hold on to. A reflection on the mystery that God does not enter the world through force, but through vulnerability. Now it is Christmas Eve, and something goes wrong. The church organ, already weakened by damp and age, has failed completely. Some say flooding damaged the bellows. Others whisper about mice. Whatever the cause, the result is the same. No organ for midnight mass. In a larger city, the service might be canceled or rescheduled. Here, that is unthinkable. These people have waited all year for this night. They need Christmas, not as a concert, but as reassurance that God is still near. Moore walks through the cold to the nearby village of Arnsdorf to see his friend Franz Xavier Gruber, the schoolteacher and organist. Gruber is older, practical, married with children, a man who understands responsibility. When Moore shows him the poem, he does not ask if it is impressive. He asks if it can be sung by tomorrow night. Gruber reads it slowly. Silent night, holy night. This is not triumph. It is peace offered gently, as if afraid to wake a sleeping child. He sits down and writes music, not for an organ, but for a guitar, an instrument of the hearth, not the cathedral. Something that can be held close to the body, something human. The next night, candlelight flickers against stone walls. The people crowd into the church, coats still on, breath visible in the cold air. They do not know something new is coming. They only know they have come to worship. And then they hear it. Not loud, not grand. 2 voices, a guitar. Stille Nacht, heilige Nacht. The melody moves like a lullaby, but it carries something deeper, a declaration that in a world scarred by war and uncertainty, God chose not to arrive as a general, but as a child. All is calm. All is bright. That line lands because calm has been rare, brightness uncertain. The song does not deny suffering. It offers a still point within it. This is the beating heart of the carol. God did not wait for the world to be ready. He entered it when it was fragile, poor, and weary. The people listen. Some weep, some close their eyes. This is not entertainment. It is recognition. And then the song begins its strange journey, passed from village to village, carried by traveling singers, translated into new languages, crossing borders it never intended to cross. Nearly a century later, in December 1914, something happens that reveals its true power. Along the Western Front, soldiers sit in muddy trenches. Christmas Eve again, guns nearby, fear close, and someone begins to sing. Silent Night. In German, then in English. Men who had been trying to kill each other hear the same song, the same fragile melody born in a broken church with a broken organ, and they step into the open. They exchange small gifts. They bury their dead. For one night, the war pauses. This song does not command peace. It reveals it. It endures because it carries the evangelical truth at the center of Christianity. God enters the world not by overpowering it, but by inhabiting it. He comes close enough to be held, quiet enough to be missed, strong enough to save. Silent Night is not about silence because nothing is wrong. It is about silence because God has come close enough to still the soul. And once you have heard it, truly heard it, you realize something essential. Our souls were made for this kind of worship, not spectacle, not noise, but wonder, a holy hush where love has finally arrived.
Carol 4, Hark the Herald Angels Sing. This song was born in motion, on horseback, on foot, in fields and streets, by a man who could not stop preaching because his soul was on fire. England in the early 1700s is outwardly Christian and inwardly restless. Churches are full, but hearts are often unmoved. Faith has become respectable, controlled, tidy. For many, Christianity is something you inherit, not something that seizes you. Industrial smoke begins to thicken the city skies. Poverty spreads. Gin shops multiply. The working poor are largely untouched by the church's voice. Charles Wesley feels this fracture keenly. He is brilliant, disciplined, earnest, and deeply dissatisfied. An Oxford scholar, methodical and moral, he does everything right. Prays, studies, behaves, and yet something essential is missing. He later admits that for years he believed about Christ without truly knowing him. That changes suddenly, painfully, gloriously. In 1738, after a season of illness, discouragement, and spiritual crisis, Charles experiences a profound interior conversion. Not emotional frenzy, but clarity, assurance, the realization that salvation is not earned by effort, but received by grace, that Christ has not merely taught humanity, but joined it. From that moment on, Charles Wesley becomes a man possessed, not by mania, but by mission. He writes hymns the way others breathe, not as ornament for worship, but as fuel for it. Theology, yes, but theology set loose among ordinary people. He writes for miners, laborers, mothers, skeptics. He writes while traveling, while exhausted, while persecuted. He writes because he believes the gospel must be sung into the bloodstream of the people. And one Christmas, he sits with a mystery that has undone him most. Not that God forgives, but that God comes. He opens the scriptures and sees not sentiment, but shock. The infinite enters the finite. The eternal takes a heartbeat. The Holy One accepts hunger, vulnerability, flesh. And he writes a hymn originally titled Hymn for a Christmas Day. No flourish, no marketing, just urgency. Hark, how all the welkin rings, glory to the King of Kings. Welkin, an old word for the vault of heaven, the sky itself reverberating. This is not background music. This is an announcement that reality has changed. As the hymn develops, Wesley does something audacious. He compresses the deepest mysteries of Christian theology into lines meant to be sung by farmers and factory workers. Veiled in flesh, the Godhead see. Hail the incarnate deity. This is not abstraction. This is proclamation. The God no one could see has stepped into visibility. The invisible has allowed himself to be touched. Pleased as man with men to dwell. Jesus our Emmanuel. That word again, Emmanuel. God with us. Not God admired from afar. Not God explained. God present. The hymn does not linger sentimentally at the manger. It moves quickly to purpose. Born that men no more may die, born to raise the sons of earth, born to give them second birth. This is the evangelical heartbeat of the song. Christ is not born to inspire niceness. He's born to resurrect humanity from the inside out. The melody most people know today, bold, triumphant, almost defiant, was added later, adapted from Felix Mendelssohn. Wesley himself had reservations about pairing sacred words with such a powerful tune, but history proved the pairing inevitable. Because this hymn is not meant to whisper, it's meant to declare. When early Methodists sang it outdoors, often shouted down, mocked, even attacked, it became a form of spiritual resistance, a refusal to let the gospel remain polite, a reminder that Christmas is not a decoration of winter, but a divine invasion. The beating heart of this song is the conviction that worship is not ritual repetition. It's a participation in the greatest story ever told. Heaven and earth meeting, God binding humanity back to himself. Charles Wesley believed this with every fiber of his being. That is why his hymns endure. They were not written from comfort, but from conversion. Not from habit, but from encounter. Hark is not asking you to listen politely. It is calling you to awake. Because if the angels truly sang, and if God truly came, then nothing, absolutely nothing, can remain unchanged.
Carol 5, Away in a Manger. This song was born in the quiet places faith is actually formed, not in cathedrals, not in revolutions, but in homes, classrooms, and the slow, unseen work of shaping children's souls. It is the mid to late 1800s in America, a young nation still defining itself, still healing from division, still learning how to hand faith from one generation to the next. Life is demanding. Families are large, work is physical, death is familiar. And for many households, church happens once or twice a week, but faith must happen every day, or it will not happen at all. This is the world into which Away in a Manger emerges. For years, people believed Martin Luther wrote it, an understandable myth because the song feels like something born of the Reformation's deepest instinct. Bring Christ close, bring him home. Let ordinary people, especially children, encounter Jesus not as a distant judge, but as a present Savior. But the truth is more tender and more human. The carol appears first in American Lutheran communities, likely written by a teacher, pastor, or parent whose name history did not preserve. Someone who understood something crucial. If Christmas is to shape the future, it must reach children, not just intellectually, but imaginatively and affectionately. This song was written for little voices. Picture a modest wooden church or a one-room schoolhouse, oil lamps glowing, children shifting on benches, a teacher standing before them, not with grand theology, but with a story. The Nativity is not staged as spectacle. It is described simply. A baby, a manger, animals breathing nearby, a mother watching closely, a world holding its breath. Away in a manger, no crib for a bed. The line is spare, honest, there's no embellishment, just the shocking humility of it all. God does not arrive buffered by comfort. He arrives exposed. The little Lord Jesus laid down his sweet head. This is not sentimentality, it is formation. Children are being taught without argument that greatness looks like gentleness, that love looks like vulnerability. Outside those walls, life is not easy. Parents work long hours. Mothers bury children too often. Fathers carry quiet fears they do not know how to name. Faith must be sturdy enough to survive sorrow and soft enough to comfort it. This song gives them both. And then comes the line that reveals the heart of the writer, the true evangelical pulse. Be near me, Lord Jesus. I ask thee to stay close by me forever and love me, I pray. This is not a historical reenactment. This is prayer. The incarnation has crossed the centuries and entered the present moment. The child singing is no longer just observing the manger. He is inviting Christ into his life. Bless all the dear children in thy tender care, and take us to heaven to live with thee there. Notice the direction of the song. It moves from Bethlehem to eternity, from straw to salvation, from bedtime prayer to ultimate hope. This is the genius of the carol. It understands that worship is not merely something we do, it is something we become. And that becoming begins young, shaped by images, words, melodies that sink below conscious thought and form the architecture of the soul. Away in a Manger endures because it was never meant to impress adults. It was meant to form disciples. Its beating heart is the conviction that God did not enter the world to remain distant or ceremonial, but to dwell with us, to be trusted, loved, and called upon by the smallest voices among us. In a culture that often confuses noise with importance, this song reminds us of a deeper truth. God saves the world quietly, one heart at a time, often beginning with a child. And those hearts, once shaped, carry the story forward. That is why this song still matters, because faith that reaches the cradle can reach the world.
Carol 6, What Child Is This? This song was born in stillness, but not the peaceful kind. It begins in England in the mid-19th century, in a small dim room where a young man lies motionless, convinced he may never rise again. Outside, the world continues. Carriages on cobblestones, factory whistles, church bells, but inside, time has slowed to the pace of breath. William Chatterton Dix is only in his early 30s, a successful insurance executive, educated, articulated, and expected to build a respectable life. And then his body fails him. A sudden severe illness leaves him bedridden for months. His strength disappears. His future feels suspended. In that long confinement, stripped of productivity and momentum, Dix faces a question more unsettling than sickness itself. If I cannot do, who am I? He has been religious all his life. He knows the forms, the prayers, the hymns, but illness has a way of burning through surface belief. Alone with his thoughts, he begins to realize that much of his faith has been inherited rather than encountered. Christmas comes, and inside of comfort, it presses him deeper. Because Christmas asks a dangerous question. Who is this child? Not sentimentally, not culturally, but existentially. As Dix lies there, weak and uncertain, the familiar nativity scene no longer feels familiar. Shepherds kneeling, angels singing, a child lying quietly. He sees it all, but now through the eyes of a man who knows how fragile life truly is. And so he begins to write, not a carol of declaration, but of inquiry. What child is this? Who laid to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping? This is not rhetorical. This is not ornamental poetry. This is a man asking from the depths of vulnerability, what kind of God enters the world like this? The tune he sets his words to is already old, Greensleeves, a haunting English folk melody that carries centuries of longing and unresolved ache. It is not triumphal, it circles, it lingers, it refuses easy resolution, perfect for the question he is asking. Why lies he in such mean estate, where ox and ass are feeding? Mean estate, low condition. This is not a stable sanitized by Christmas cards. This is poverty, exposure, vulnerability, risk. And then Dix does something important, something evangelical at its core. He answers the question. Nails, spears shall pierce him through, the cross be borne for me, for you. The manger is no longer isolated, it is connected directly, inevitably to the cross. The child is not born to be admired, but to be offered. The vulnerability of Bethlehem is already pointing toward Calvary. And then comes the turn, the moment where contemplation becomes response. So bring him incense, gold, and myrrh. Come, peasant king, to own him. The invitation is universal. Class dissolves, status collapses. The only question that remains is not who you are, but will you come? Yet Dix does not end with gifts. He ends with allegiance. Let loving hearts enthrone him. This is the heartbeat of the song. Christmas is not complete when the child is recognized. It's complete when he is received. Enthroned not in buildings or traditions, but in the human heart. William Dix eventually recovers physically, but he never returns unchanged. That season of weakness reshapes his faith. He goes on to write hundreds of hymns, but none more enduring than this one, born when he could do nothing except ask the most important question of all. What child is this? It is the question every soul must answer, not once, but again and again. And this song endures because it refuses to let Christmas remain vague. It presses the mystery into the present moment and insists, if this child is Christ the King, then he must be more than remembered. He must be received, not as ritual, not as nostalgia, but as Lord. And when that happens, when the question meets an honest heart, the story does not end. It begins.
Carol 7, Joy to the World. This song was born not at the manger, but at the edge of history with a man who believed Christianity had grown far too small. England again, but now the early 1700s. The air is thick with sermons, catechisms, and church attendance. Christianity is everywhere, and yet something essential feels absent. Faith has been domesticated, tamed, reduced to moral instruction and polite observance. The gospel is preached, but it rarely feels alive. Isaac Watts feels this deeply and painfully. He is brilliant, introspective, physically frail, and often melancholy. As a young man, he sits in church week after week, listening to psalms sung word for word from Scripture, stiffly rendered, emotionally inert. One day, he finally speaks up to his father. Why must God be praised with such a lifeless language? His father's response is sharp and decisive. Then write something better. And he does. Watts becomes convinced that worship must engage the whole soul, mind, heart, imagination, that God did not design human beings to praise him mechanically, but fully, passionately, joyfully. Worship, he believes, is meant to awaken us to reality, not dull us into habit. Years later, Watts sits with Psalm 98, a psalm not about Bethlehem, but about victory. The Lord has made known his salvation. All the ends of the earth have seen the salvation of our God. Watts does something radical. He does not ask, how should Israel have sung this? He asks, what does this mean now that Christ has come? And suddenly the scope explodes. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Not will come, not might come, is come. This is not anticipation. This is proclamation. Watts is not picturing shepherds at a stable. He's picturing creation itself, responding to redemption. Rivers clapping their hands, fields breaking into song, history bending toward restoration. Let earth receive her king. That line is everything. Christmas is no longer about watching. It's about receiving, yielding, opening the gates of the heart, allowing Christ not just to arrive, but to reign. And then Watts turns outward, far beyond personal devotion. No more let sins and sorrows grow, nor thorns infest the ground. This is Genesis language, fall language, curse language. Watts is declaring that the incarnation is not a sentimental episode. It is the beginning of cosmic reversal. The curse is being undone. Redemption is moving outward like light overtaking darkness. He comes to make his blessings flow far as the curse is found. This is the evangelical heartbeat of the song. There is no corner of life untouched by Christ's reign. Not politics, not nature, not suffering, not even death. And finally, the song lifts its eyes to the end of all things. He rules the world with truth and grace and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness and wonders of his love. This is not triumphalism. It is hope anchored in sovereignty, the belief that history is not random, that love is not fragile, that Christ's reign is not symbolic, but real. Ironically, Joy to the World was never intended to be a Christmas carol. It was a hymn about Christ's kingship, about his return, about the restoration of all things. And that is precisely why it works so powerfully at Christmas. Because Christmas is not the end of the story. It is the invasion point. The heartbeat of this song is Watts's fierce conviction that worship is not repetition. It is participation in God's redemptive work. That when we sing, we are aligning ourselves with reality as it truly is. Christ reigning, the world being healed, joy pressing outward, whether we feel it yet or not. Watts knew suffering. He knew illness. He knew disappointment. And still, he insisted on joy, not as denial, but as defiance. Joy as trust. Joy as allegiance. Joy as worship rightly ordered. This song endures because it lifts our eyes from the crib to the crown, from nostalgia to mission, from ritual to reign. Joy to the world is not an emotion. It is a declaration. The Lord has come, and everything, yes, everything is being remade.
Our final carol, number 8, Angels We Have Heard on High. This song was born in fields, among people whose lives were shaped by weather, animals, hunger, and hope that had to be sturdy enough to survive disappointment. Southern France. The rolling countryside of the Languedoc region, not courts or colleges, pastures. Shepherds and farmers live close to the ground here. They rise early, they work until their bodies ache. They pray simply, often without eloquence, trusting God not because life is easy, but because it is not. Faith here is embodied, you might say calloused, sung more than spoken. For generations, these rural communities passed down what are called Noels, folk Christmas songs sung in dialect, often outdoors, often together, often imperfectly. They're not composed for choirs. They're meant to be shouted across hillsides, sung while walking home, carried on cold breath beneath wide skies. One of those songs begins not with explanation, but with astonishment. Angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing o'er the plains. The lyrics describe what these people know instinctively. If God speaks, it will not always be in quiet interiors. Sometimes it will be in open fields, in the places no one expects anything important to happen. The shepherds of Luke's gospel are not romantic figures. They're marginal, poor, often distrusted, and yet they are the first witnesses. This mattered deeply to the people who sang this song, because they too lived on the edges of power. The melody that gives this carol its unforgettable power, the soaring Gloria, likely existed before the lyrics. It is exuberant, almost reckless. It climbs and climbs until it feels impossible to sustain. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Why does it leap like that? Because it is not meant to be contained. This is the sound of heaven breaking into human existence, not gently, but overwhelmingly. The human voice stretching beyond its natural range, as if to say, this joy is more than we can comfortably hold. And that is exactly the point. The song moves quickly with wonder to witness. Shepherds, why this jubilee? Why your joyous strains prolong? The question is rhetorical. The answer is already known. Something has happened that cannot be unsung. Come to Bethlehem and see him whose birth the angels sing. This is not performance. This is evangelism in its most organic form. Come and see. We did not imagine this. We did not manufacture this. God acted, and we're still catching our breath. The people who carried this song did not analyze the incarnation. They experienced it as good news meant for them. God did not choose kings or scholars or soldiers. He chose the poor, the vigilant, the awake and the night ones. That truth echoed powerfully through these communities. When the carol was later translated into English in the 19th century, the translator wisely left the Gloria untouched. Because it can't be translated. It must be sung. It bypasses argument and goes straight to the body, the lungs, the heart. This is worship as overflow. The beating heart of this song is the conviction that God made our souls for praise that lifts us beyond ourselves. That when heaven draws near, the correct response is not polite reverence, but joy that strains the limits of expression. This is not ritual repetition. This is recognition. Recognition that the story is real, that angels truly sang, that shepherds truly heard, that God truly came. And when that truth lands, not in abstraction, but in flesh and breath and sound, something happens to a people. They sing louder. They sing together. They sing as if the fields themselves are listening, because they are. And because once heaven has touched earth, silence is no longer an option.
So when our ache finds its voice, every one of these carols began as someone else's ache, a longing whispered into the cold, a question asked from a sickbed, a prayer sung when words alone could not carry the weight. And yet somehow they became our songs, not because the ache disappeared, but because it was met. What these carols teach us, if we allow them, is that worship is not denial of suffering. It is the place suffering is gathered, held, and transformed. God did not wait for the world to be healed before entering it. He entered it in order to heal it. That is the healing heart of Christmas. The incarnation did not erase human struggle. It sanctified it. It told the truth about our condition while refusing to leave us there. It revealed that our souls were made not to endure in isolation, but to be bound together in praise, hope, and trust. When we sing these carols now, we are not merely remembering their origins. We are participating in their purpose. We are allowing our own fatigue, doubt, grief, and longing to find voice, and then to be lifted from ache to adoration. That is the journey of every honest heart. That is the path God Himself chose to walk toward us. And if these songs have endured for centuries, it is because the invitation still stands. Bring your ache, lift your voice, let your soul remember what it was made for. Adoration.
So, brothers and sisters, as we close this chapter of our mission and ministry, and Ignite Radio Live in particular, profoundly moved by many of you who've journeyed with us through these over 10 years of endeavoring to imperfectly but faithfully be attuned to the heart of God and communicate with clarity and honesty and realism His breaking into our lives and hearts, His healing, transforming love in this program, Ignite Radio Live. We are blessed that we know it is giving rise to a new season in our life. We're excited about the weekly Live It program that we are going to host, and it's going to integrate with this call, which we believe is so important. Not resting in fleeting programs or connect the dots once in a while, but God's invitation to personally meet with Him every single day. And we invite you to join us. Those of you, whether you're feeling alone, distracted, discouraged, alive, rejoicing, whatever space you find yourself in, God gives us the gift of Himself in sacred liturgy. And every day, we invite you to join us in this liveittoday.us guide. And the program is going to showcase saints of the coming week in the real stories where heaven, revealing heaven come to earth. So thank you again for journeying with us. We do ask you to join us again at liveittoday.us and are so grateful. Certainly your prayers, support, and even if you'd become a paid subscriber, we would be so grateful. Have a very blessed Christ Mass. So blessed to journey with you. Until next time, God bless you.
Grace unites what's gone astray. Through the cold, His mercy